to this week's hashtag Finance Friday. We have been talking about compliance this month. And let's be honest, the last 2 weeks have been maybe a little bit of a heavy drudgery as we've been talking about all of these factors that can affect you from a compliance side. And today, maybe you might find that again, because we're going to be talking about POPI, and I've been promising you this for a little while, but today I want to encourage you, because in many ways, you may find that you are actually already compliant. So let me know how you fare with our checklist approach today, and see how you are actually doing. So let's jump straight into this. So POPI, you might have heard this term. It's like, it's a buzzword at the moment, right? But it's all about protecting personal information by restricting how it can be collected and used by either a company, an organization, or a person. And it sets out 8 key principles, and we'll have a look at them in a very broad way and very briefly. Okay, so firstly, it's all about accountability. So who is the responsible party that is going to be processing the personal information? And they are going to be making sure that you are complying with the Act, as well as the measures that are set out by it. So that's the first one, accountability. Secondly, what is the processing limitation? So in other words, when you think about processing information, it must be done in a way that is lawful and in a way that doesn't infringe on the privacy of the individual. Okay. Thirdly, purpose specification. This is really important. Any personal information that is collected must be collected for a specific purpose. And importantly, the individuals whose information is being collected needs to be aware of this purpose. Okay. And also we must make sure that the records that we are collecting are not going to be sticking around for too much longer than to achieve the purpose for which it was collected. Okay, next one. Further processing limitation. What this means is any further processing of your information must be compatible with the purpose of collection. Okay, lots of big words, but if I have collected your information to be able to send you an email in the first place, that is the purpose. I cannot now use it for another purpose, like to stalk you, I don't know, on social media, right? Okay, the next one is all about information quality. The holder of the data must take reasonable steps to ensure that personal information is complete, accurate, not misleading, and updated when necessary. Okay, so I, being the holder of the data, must make sure that I inquire of you if anything has changed. Okay, and then the next one is all about openness. So steps are required to ensure that the data subject, which might be you, is aware of the personal information that is being collected, as well as the purpose of that collection. Okay, then we need to have a look at security safeguards. It's number 7. The responsible party must secure the personal information under their possessive control, okay, which is lots of big words. Okay, so if it's under my possession or under my control, I must make sure that it is secure, cannot be breached, cannot be hacked, cannot be ransomware, whatever. I've got some sort of policies and procedures in place to make sure that your information is secure. And then lastly, number 8, data subject participation. Now, this is where you as the data subject can request whether I'm holding any personal information or private information on your behalf. So think about when you have information loaded on Facebook or LinkedIn, okay? Then you can actually go request to see all of the data that they have collected on you and see any conclusions that they have drawn about you. You might see that on LinkedIn specifically. And you can then either request that that information is changed, corrected, or deleted, okay? To the extent that it is inaccurate, irrelevant, or too much, or out of date, whatever, you are allowed to request that to be deleted. Okay, so those are the 8 key principles that the POPI Act requires us to comply with. But now you might ask, what exactly is personal information? Okay, now personal information is really any information relating to an unidentifiable, living, natural person. Okay, so a person, human being like you or me, or a juristic person, which is basically your companies, any closed corporations that you might be dealing with, okay? And it includes, not exclusively, but it includes your contact details, which includes your email, your telephone number, your address. It includes your demographic information, so whether that's your age or your gender, your race, all of those things that go along with it. Your history, whether that's your employment background, your financial history. So think about those credit checks that get done on you, your educational background, criminal checks, your medical history, all of those things form part of your history. And it's very much a personal personal piece of information, right? And then also biometric information like your blood type, your opinions that you might have, and any private correspondence that has happened between you and myself. Okay, so that is all defined as personal information. Okay. So when we think about what we need to do to make sure that we are POPI compliant, there are a couple of specific steps that need to be followed, and there are about 10 of them. So let's have a look at this little checklist that goes with it. Okay, so firstly, you need to formalize your POPI Act compliance project. In other words, you need to say, I am now endeavoring to comply with POPI. Okay, and that includes identifying your stakeholders, the sponsors that might be involved with this, your managers, as well as the scope, the timelines, as well as the budget relating to this project. Okay, then secondly, you need to appoint an information officer. Now, this person is going to make sure that everything with regards to POPI is being adhered to. Okay, so this could be the CEO or the business owner. Okay, they might just add on an extra line to their job description to make sure that they are checking out what's happening with POPI. Okay, and then number 3, you're going to perform a gap analysis versus the POPI Act. In other words, you're going to say, this is what I need to adhere to in terms of the Act. Where am I at the moment, and how can we close that gap? Okay, so as part of this process, you might set some targets, whether it's the interim targets or slightly longer term, but it doesn't mean just trying to comply to everything 100% regardless of the cost or benefit, right? You need to make sure that you are evaluating both of those together. And then from there, you need to analyze what information is being processed and how that information is being processed. So if you look at that, you need to consider the consent that goes along with it. You need to look at the purpose of collecting that information, where the information is coming from, the source, as well as how you're going to be sharing that information and how you're going to destroy that information. That is basically the full life cycle of collecting the information. Okay, so consider what the user rights are and like who has access to this information, and also the types of devices where this data might be stored. That can all influence the security and the potential risk that goes along with having this information. Okay. Number 5, you need to implement POPI compliance policies. So look at all of the policies and procedures that you have in your business at the moment and make sure you make some tweaks and changes, okay? And the same goes for any contracts that you might have in place. You might just be able to add in an extra little clause to indicate that you are considering what POPI means and how this can reflect on your data subject. Okay, then look at your websites. Now, we have previously mentioned that there are multiple big websites and large suppliers that don't actually have any cookies, notifications, or pop-ups that come up, but you need to go have a look and see what is actually happening on your website. Do you have cookies, notifications? Do you have privacy policies that are visible to your visitors? All of those things you need to make sure that you have in place. And then from there, you can either update if you have one, or otherwise create your POPI Act manual. So as part of this step, you need to confirm whether your organization needs a Promotion of Access to Information Act manual and by when you are going to be completing this. Okay, so you're going to review all of the content in the manual, and it might include information from the previous steps that you've already looked at. And you're going to be documenting each of those steps and processes and what the conclusion has been from them. And then you will make sure that you're implementing POPI compliant PI management processes. So the PI, the personal information, right? Look at that life cycle from acquisition of the information to processing the information to how you're going to be keeping it and then how you're going to be destroying it. All of those need to be considered, and you need to look at specific points in each of those areas. Okay, that can include self-assessments, doing health checks, doing formal audits, and making sure that you are actually, at the end of the day, developing a little bit of a dashboard for your compliance, because then at any given point in time, you can see where you're at. And then from there, you'll have to go train your stakeholders about their individual roles within the POPI Act compliance. So if that's your employees that are processing information from your clients, or whether it's your HR personnel dealing with confidential employee information, all of those people need to understand what the implications are and how it impacts them. And then lastly, once you've gone through this whole process and you've trained people, you've got a nice little manual in place, and you've really established what this looks like in your business, you need to start having a look at how you can actually make POPI compliance business as usual. In other words, incorporate this as part of your normal policies and procedures. It should be part of the new normal and the way that you work on an everyday basis. So build compliance into your products, your services, your processes. Adopt this whole concept of privacy by design. So everything that you do should be centered around how can we protect this information and how can we collect the least amount of information possible to be able to make sure that we are able to have the right decisions. So the more you build this into your everyday operations and you make it part of the status quo, the easier it will become to ensure compliance in the longer term. And really, that's what we want to do at the end of the day, right? We want to make sure that compliance is easy to achieve. It doesn't have to be a drudgery. So next week, we are going to be talking to the founder of Chai Legal. I've been telling you guys about her, Veronique Verlander, and she is going to be helping us to understand, why do we need to do this? Who is this for? Do I even need to do this as a small business owner? And she's going to show us how to practically implement some of these steps that we've mentioned already. And we're going to be implementing it using UPvisor's information. So you're going to get a really practical example that goes along with it. So I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a really great session. And we will also be mentioning something very, very cool that we are launching together. So make sure you are joining us on Friday, the 30th of April. There you go, that's the right date. And we are going to really be getting into the nitty-gritty of how to apply POPI in your business. So I look forward to it, and I hope that you do too, and I'll see you then. Bye.